Well, folks, America is witnessing something we've never seen before. On the one side, you've got the streets of Washington, D.C. erupting in chaos as President Trump's cleanup battalions sweep through 72 illegal squatter encampments in just 24 hours. Bulldozers are ripping through tents. Furious protesters are screaming about human rights, and Trump is giving every single one of them a choice: shelter or jail, you choose. And on the other side, at the exact same moment, the FBI raiding the home and office of none other than John Bolton. This is the same man who once called Trump a national security risk. Agents are storming in at 7 a.m., seizing computers, boxes of documents, and files that could expose the deepest secrets of the swamp. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just a crackdown. This is a two-front war. President Trump, he's cleaning up the streets and the swamp in the same week. The squatters are rioting, the elites are panicking, and the question you really got to ask yourself is this: is Trump saving America from collapse or punishing the poor while pulling the mask off the powerful? Well, stick around, guys, because we need to break down exactly why President Trump's law and order offensive has the DC elites trembling, how John Bolton's raid could blow years off the DOJ corruption. And trust me, guys, you're not going to want to miss what's coming, because wait till you hear what these agents found in John Bolton's files. Once you see who's been profiting off of America's homeless crisis, you're never going to look at this country the same way again. So you guys hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. You guys' support is absolutely amazing. I really appreciate you. All right, President Trump, he promised action, and he delivered the action. In fact, only 24 hours, he pulled off more than 72 homeless encampments being erased off the streets of Washington, D.C. Guys, we're talking about major hotspots right around the outside of the Kennedy Center, the Martin Luther King Library, even Washington Circle, all cleared out. Cleanup battalions rolled in with bulldozers. They're hauling away tents, broken appliances, makeshift furniture, and piles of trash that had consumed America's capital. President Trump's message was very clear. He said, no more lawlessness, no more tent cities in the heart of our nation. But here's where the situation kind of explodes. Every single squatter was given a choice: either accept shelter and services or face fines and jail time. Now, supporters are saying this is compassion with accountability. Opponents, they're calling it cruel. They're accusing Trump of criminalizing poverty. How is he criminalizing poverty when he's giving them an offer for shelter? I don't even understand where they're coming from, but it is what it is. So I want to ask you guys, is this mercy with boundaries, or is it punishment disguised as policy? Is Trump really saving the city, or is he crushing the poor? I'm gonna let y'all decide on that. So here's the other side, because as Trump's bulldozers rolled in, the voices of the homeless, they cut through the noise. The one woman stood outside. She stood outside of her tent and she said, "We're not criminals. We just can't afford $2,000 for a studio apartment. Shelters feel like prison. They put you in with the craziest people and expect you to be grateful." What do you guys think about $2,000 a month for a studio apartment? That seems a little steep, doesn't it? But at the same time, are you better off being in a shelter with the crazies or out in the open dealing with the elements and whatever goes on out there? Y'all let me know. But think about this for a second. Like on the one hand, you got squatters saying that they're trying to survive and they're not trying to break the law. But on the other side, you got residents and business owners that are saying, do we really want the capital of the United States to look like a slum? So this is really where America split down the middle, because, I mean, do you side with the people who are trapped in poverty, who reject the shelter program, or with the citizens who say enough is enough and we want order restored? So folks, it doesn't even stop there, because what if I told you that there's an entire industry that is making billions of dollars off of this exact crisis, and that they have every incentive to keep those people on the street? Well, stick with me, guys, because I want to dive into exactly what this homeless industrial complex is, the DC political hypocrisy. And let me warn you guys, once you see who's actually getting rich off this tragedy, you're never going to look at the word compassion the same way again. Now, nothing's more jarring than sitting in a doctor's office and hearing, "Sorry, your plan isn't accepted anymore." Has anyone ever been told that? Yeah, I'm sure many of us have. Well, it happens more than you think, and usually at the worst possible moment. This is exactly why I decided to partner with Chapter. Their advisors double check your providers and your networks before you end up in that situation. And that can be financially painful. I'll tell you that now. Sharon Bertusik, she knows exactly what that pain feels like, because she got dropped from coverage and she was left scrambling. But after calling chapter, she secured a new plan that restored her peace of mind. So ask yourself this: would you rather find out now, or would you rather get blindsided later? Now, most people are not waiting for that shock. This is why most people are already calling the number at the bottom of your screen right now. Phone number is 909-563-8279, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron on the web. So, all right, guys, let's dig a little bit deeper, because what's happening in Washington, it's not just about tents and trash and bulldozers. It's about the money machine that's behind this crisis that 99% of Americans have no clue even exists. Oh, and the hypocrisy of the very people that are screaming the loudest, it's insane. So for decades, guys, we've been told homelessness is a problem that we just can't seem to fix. But here's the truth: billions, and I'm talking billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars, have already been poured into the system. Nonprofits, NGOs, city programs, caseworkers, lawyers, consultants, housing coordinators, all have been paid handsomely to quote unquote fight homelessness. So why are the streets only getting worse? Anybody have any ideas why the streets are getting worse? Because for way too long, many of these players, the homeless crisis, it's not a problem. It's actually a business model. I mean, think about what happened the moment Trump's cleanup battalions rolled into DC. For years, activists shoveled paperwork, they collected checks, and they gave speeches about compassion. After that, they suddenly, within like 24 hours of President Trump's action, they were scrambling around the clock, trying to find housing for 800 to 1,000 people. Scrambling now, but where was that urgency before? Where was that intensity when DC parks turned into shanty towns, right? Where was that all hands on deck mentality when taxpayers were writing these blank checks? It didn't exist, because as long as the tents stayed up, the funding stayed up too. See, guys, this is the brutal truth. Once we have to face the bigger homelessness problem, the bigger the budgets get. And that's the situation here. The minute that President Trump actually did something about this, actually cleared the tents, that gravy train, it was threatened. So here's the situation. I don't want to say all. Are activists really advocates of the homeless, or are they really the advocates of their own funding streams? So do they really want to solve this problem? Or if they leave this problem in place, they keep collecting a check. It's almost kind of like managing the problem forever. Not trying to fix the problem, we're just managing the problem. That way they can keep the checks flowing in. So this is really where the hypocrisy hits the hardest, because while these activists are profiting, the political class is posturing. I mean, just take a walk down the street of Washington before Trump's crackdown. Luxury apartments, $500,000, even $1 million a unit, standing tall, just steps away from the parks that are packed with tents, broken furniture, and human suffering, okay? The people living in those condos sip the lattes, they scroll their feeds, and they shake their heads about how cruel Trump is. But do they invite the squatters into their guest rooms? Do they share their expensive space? Of course not. They post hashtags and they step over needles and trash on the way to Whole Foods. Then, of course, there's, Mayor Muriel Bowser and the DC establishment. Now, for years, they've walked past the same misery every single day. Entire parks that are turned into these open air drug markets, sidewalks blocked with tents, alleys filled with garbage. And what do? They don't do anything. They normalize it. They look the other way, because to them, it wasn't a crisis. It was a cash cow. Now, Trump, he didn't invent new laws. He didn't create new powers. He simply enforced what was already there. Laws that made street encampments illegal for decades. Laws that the DC political class, they refused to enforce it because it was just easier to keep the money flowing than to actually fix the problem. And it's because they're so greedy. And the irony here, guys, the very people that are screaming about Trump's cruelty, they're the same ones who tolerated human beings living in filth for years. They were fine letting people rot on the sidewalks just as long as they could keep pointing fingers at somebody else and collect those federal dollars. So the real question becomes this: is Trump the only one with the courage to say enough is enough and bring law back to the Capitol? Or is he, as the critics scream, going too far pushing the vulnerable while elites are looking down from their high-rise apartments. Well, which is it? Well, folks, if you think that hypocrisy is bad, wait until you see what happened at 7 a.m. on August 22nd, because while the streets were being cleared, the swamp was being shaken to its core. The FBI raided John Bolton's home and his office, seizing computers, files, and classified documents that could very well unravel years and years of cover-ups. So we already covered the streets. I want to turn to the swamp here, because what just happened to John Bolton on August 22nd, it wasn't just another headline. It was a political earthquake. At exactly 7 a.m., FBI agents swarmed John Bolton's multi-million-dollar Bethesda mansion and his office in Washington, D.C. These weren't routine visits. These were search warrants signed off by not one, but two federal judges, which means the evidence of wrongdoing had to be overwhelming. Now, agents spent nearly 8 hours going through Bolton's property. They hauled away computer towers, hard drives, boxes of classified documents, and stacks of files. Now, the contents, they have not been disclosed yet, but leaks are already pointing to what investigators were after. John Bolton allegedly included classified information in his 2020 tell-all book, the same book he published to sabotage President Trump's re-election. He is also being accused of sharing drafts with publishers and outside contacts before national security officials cleared the text. Now, emails reportedly show John Bolton was writing his manuscript while still serving as the national security advisor. And most disturbingly out of all of these issues is sources are claiming that John Bolton may have used private email servers to funnel classified intel to family members while on the payroll, the taxpayer payroll, entrusted by America's most sensitive secrets. Now, let that sink in just for a second, okay? This is the man who went on TV night after night lecturing Trump about national security. This is the same man who joked that Trump treated classified files like French fries. And now he's the one that's facing possible charges under the Espionage Act, charges that carry sentences of anywhere from 10 to 20 years. But it doesn't stop here. Investigators, they're also digging into John Bolton's overseas financial ties. Now, there were whispers of foreign payments, speaking fees, consulting deals that may have crossed into intelligence trafficking. Now, if this is true, that goes way beyond sloppy handling of documents. That moves into the territory of treason. Now, the raid didn't just seize boxes. It shattered John Bolton's image as the principled conservative. And it raises the biggest question of all. Was John Bolton selling out America while pretending to save it? So here's where this story completely explodes, because none of this is new. Back in 2020, a federal judge already warned John Bolton that he was likely violating national security laws by punishing his book into print. Okay, so the risk was real. The case was active. There was talk of prosecution. But when Joe Biden took office in 2021, everything changed. The Department of Justice quietly killed the investigation. There was no press conference. There was no transparency, no accountability, just silence. Why? Because John Bolton suddenly became innocent. Or was he? No, of course he wasn't innocent. The evidence didn't vanish. The classified materials didn't magically disappear. The DOJ pulled the plug for one reason. John Bolton had become politically useful. So he was one of their top attack dogs against Trump. If you guys remember, his book was a weapon. His TV appearances were ammunition. So the Biden DOJ protected him. They looked the other way. They shielded him, not because justice demanded it, but because politics did. And so that was the ultimate irony. For years, the media screamed that Trump would weaponize the DOJ, that Trump was going to go after his enemies. But the truth is, the real weaponization already happened under Biden. They protected their allies. They targeted their opponents. And John Bolton's case is the smoking gun. Now, if we fast forward to 2025, Trump is back. The Bolton raid, it's not revenge, it's retribution, it's accountability, it's the reopening of a case that never should have been buried. But this is why the swamp is panicking. Because if John Bolton could get raided, who's next? How many insiders, how many lobbyists and talking heads thought that they were untouchable, only to realize that Trump's DOJ is pulling the mask off the entire operation? And folks, it's about to get even more damning, because John Bolton isn't just guilty of hypocrisy. He embodies the very culture of corruption that elites live by. They flaunt their rules, they laugh at accountability, and they call it a status symbol. So here's where the whole thing really kind of comes full circle. The hypocrisy of the elites. Because John Bolton wasn't just careless. He wasn't just sloppy. He went on national TV mocking President Trump after the Mar-a-Lago raid, sneering that some days Trump grabbed French fries. Some days he grabbed classified documents. Okay, that was his punchline. That was his big shot at looking principled. But if we fast forward to today, all right, who's the one that's facing these accusations of mishandling classified documents? Who's the one whose house just got raided? John Bolton. This is essentially what the experts are calling elite defiance. When people at the top deliberately break the rules, flaunt it, and then treat their ability to get away with it as a status symbol. They think that they're untouchable because they know the judges, they know the lawyers, and they know the system is going to protect them. But not anymore. Bolton's raid, this is sending a clear message. Under President Trump, the era of consequence-free corruption is over. So whether you're a squatter pitching a tent on a sidewalk, or maybe you're a so-called principled conservative hoarding state secrets in your home, in your mansion, the law still applies to you. So this is what makes this moment historic. Two crises, one on the streets, one in the swamp, colliding at the same time. So in the span of just days, Trump obliterated tent cities in DC and exposed the swamp's own hypocrisy with a raid on one of its own prized insiders. So now the question isn't, it's not just about policy. It isn't even just about justice. It's really about America's future. Is this Trump saving a collapsing nation, enforcing law and order where everybody else looked the other way? Or is this a crisis, as critics claim, cruelty disguised as order? Well, y'all let me know what you think that is. So this is where I want to leave it to you. Because today, President Trump, he's showing the country that no one, whether you're rich or poor, powerful or powerless, is above the law. Not the squatters in the tents, not John Bolton in his big old mansion. But now America has to decide. Do you stand with Trump's crackdown as the only path back to order? Or do you see this as a step that's gone too far, punishing the vulnerable while exposing the powerful? Drop your thoughts down below. I read every single one of your comments. And if you made it this far, YouTube believes that you're going to love the video that just popped up on your screen right there. Don't miss it because it dives even deeper into what President Trump is dismantling the swamp piece by piece. Like, share, and subscribe. This story is so far from over. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below.